So, Mahfuz, welcome back to the show. Our last podcast is still doing rounds on the internet. Our audience really liked it. What's up?
Assalamu alaikum, Ali bhai.
Welcome, Islam.
Yeah, last episode was very interesting. Um, Glad that you invited me back. Happy to talk about more stuff. There's always stuff to talk about, for
Actually,
better or worse.
I was scrolling through X. I saw your post, and it said Israel sanctioned. So that had an
Mm.
impact with me. Explain this thing to the world. How?
So what you're talking about is a video I made uh, discussing the sanctions, essentially, effectively, there are sanctions by a group of countries on the state of Israel in response to Israel's actions in Gaza, inactions in stopping what they did in Gaza, and the International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court, their verdict or their current ongoing trial of the Israeli state. So, normally, Ali, as I'm sure you will know, that the viewers will know, normally, for better or worse, the Western world is the sort of police. The United States is the chief of police. Whatever the US says, yes, sir, no, sir, we follow your orders, sir, of course. That's slowly changing. That uh, world order is eroding, is being replaced by something else. This multipolar world order, where you see the map behind me, there's more in the world than just the northern hemisphere and the North Atlantic countries. So other countries are now rising up, assisted, led by, in some cases, China, which is obviously the leading global South country. And they're saying, you know what, the West is not immune to justice. The West has not got diplomatic and legal immunity, and the allies of the West do not have this immunity. So we're going to use international law. We're going to use it on criminal states, even in the West. Why is it only? Why is it one set of rules for the West and another set of rules for us, the rest? Why is it like so? 30 countries went to Bogota, the capital of Colombia in South America, and they got together and they said international law. Considering what Israel is doing in Gaza, we've come to the assessment that it's time to sanction Israel.
So
We're going to sanction
wait.
Israel.
So
We're going to,
this
yeah.
was the reason why they went there. This was the prime reason why they got together in Bogota.
This is literally the only reason. It was called the Emergency Meeting of the Hague Group. It was a summit, and the US and Israel called it a distortion of the truth. Israeli officials called it anti-Semitic. Of course. If an Israeli official trips over a wire on the street, anti-Semitic wire.
Okay,
So
wait.
anti-Semitic
So,
football club if they beat the Israeli football club. This is anyway. It doesn't matter.
okay,
But it was just because of this that they
wait.
met.
Let's unbox this a little more. Let's picturize this. What countries are we talking about?
Hmm. I wish I remembered from the top of my head.
Uh huh.
So in this summit, Ali, we had global South players like China and South Africa. You also had um, countries like Qatar and even European countries like Spain. I believe Portugal was there as well. Pakistan, Algeria, Oman. So there were countries from many different regions of the world. Uh, Out of the 30 or so that came, only 12 imposed the sanctions. They committed to imposing sanctions. They came up with six different points. They said we're going to do this to Israel, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. They weren't particularly damning, dangerous points, mind you. Oh, Malaysia was there, Indonesia was there. I always forget them, even though they're some of the largest countries in the world by
Muslim. Yeah.
population. The largest Muslim population country in the world is Indonesia. Malaysia is not too far behind. Very heavyweights in the Southeast Asian um, theater. But what's really important is it's not really important that only 12 countries signed. What's really important is all these countries gathered openly, publicly, against Israel, an ally of the West. And they said, 12 of them said, we're going to actually sanction them. You can't come to our ports anymore. You can't ask us for any arms, any weapons deals. We're going to assess using our legal frameworks. And if we see that any Israeli soldiers or Israeli officials are in our territory, we're going to arrest them and we're going to smack them with the law. Yeah,
Wow.
this is very high pressure, Ali, for Israeli citizens. You know, they can't go to these countries now all of a sudden.
Mm.
Um, and those 12 countries encouraged the remaining 20. They said, by September, we hope that you will join us in sanctioning Israel. So that's a request out to the remainder of the countries. And what happens in September? Why September? Because in September, the United Nations gathers its uh, uh, General Assembly. Yeah, it's been a long day at work, so I'm
Yeah,
forgetting
yeah,
certain things.
yeah.
The United Nations General Assembly comes, and they hope that more countries will be sanctioning Israel by that point. So it's a very significant progress
Mm.
in the direction of actually holding Israel accountable for its crimes, and is a very significant demonstration that we're moving into a world where the West is at the top and the rest are just servants or slaves, second class nations. That we're moving away from that. Now we're moving into a world where even the West, if they do something criminal, other parts of the world, the global south, might stand up and say, you can't do that without repercussions, without punishments.
Mm. What implications would this have on other countries? What are the reactions of other Western countries which wasn't there, present there in the meeting? Any response from other countries?
So, so let me tell you the indirect response. The response from countries that are not publicly connected to the Bogota historic summit, but it is a response nonetheless. It's very juicy, Ali. What
Mm.
I'll tell you is,
Mm.
I think, very juicy, very interesting.
Mm.
30 countries went somewhere after 2 years of the Gaza crisis, and they said Israel is doing XYZ, is absolutely unacceptable. We're going to slap some sanctions on them. Just 5 days later, Ali, it's not a coincidence, right? Just 5 days later, 25 countries, 25 other countries, not these 30, 25 other countries, led by the UK, the UK, France, and the European Commission. So these are now the Western countries. These are Israeli allies. 25 countries came out and publicly said, we demand Israel stop their actions in Gaza. It's completely unacceptable. We can no longer support what's being done. And they are considering taking actions if Israel does not respond. Now, loads of people in my comment section, in hundreds of comments I'm getting already, Mahfuz, these countries are just paying lip service. They're just talking. They're not going to take action. Yes, I know. I'm an analyst. I'm not an activist, but those countries that have spent the last 2 years, Ali, defending Israel, now for them to give lip
Yeah,
service
that's
even
yeah,
to say,
man.
I
Yeah,
condemn
yeah,
Israel,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
a huge
Huge. Yeah, yeah,
shift. You have to
yeah,
understand how big, for the Israeli state, their officials, they're going to be crying themselves sleep at night. They're going to be calling even the Western countries anti Semitic now.
yeah,
Everyone will be anti Semitic.
yeah, yeah,
You get anti Semitism card. You
yeah,
get anti
yeah,
Semitism
yeah,
card.
yeah.
No, because
Yeah, so,
it's
so, so,
really
so,
bad for them.
so, what is causing this geopolitical transition? What is,
Shift.
yeah, what is happening?
What's happening is, yeah, go on.
Yeah, is Israel taking too much of the European Union's attention, finances, and everything else? Are they like getting? Is this getting too old for them to handle now?
That's one way of seeing it. How I would see it is, historically, for the last 30 years minimum, the European countries have been under America's umbrella, under America's sphere of influence. So America was the one who ruled basically, and Europe, Western Europe, fell under its submission.
Mm,
That's why you see UK, France, Germany, they don't really have militaries. They
mm,
have special forces. Why do they not have militaries of hundreds of thousands of soldiers? Because whenever you need military action, they just call Big Daddy.
mm,
Big Daddy America, I need military over there. Okay, I
mm,
don't have a military. I'm going to spend all my money on economics,
mm,
all my money on civil technology. So These countries are under America's influence. But what's shifting now is America is moving away from its
Yeah.
traditional allies,
Mm,
basically abandoning them.
mm,
You see, in Europe,
mm,
America was supporting Ukraine,
mm,
which we don't really talk about on your channel. I think maybe
mm,
we'll talk about it at some point.
mm,
But you see, America was supporting Ukraine. Ukraine was basically America's proxy
mm,
against Russia.
mm,
When Trump assessed the situation, he realized Russia is winning.
mm,
I can't really give full support anymore, so he pulled away
mm,
from Ukraine. This leaves the Western European countries in a very difficult geopolitical situation. Their overlord is abandoning them,
mm,
basically. So they
mm,
have to defend themselves, they have to
mm,
fend for themselves.
mm,
So, in this new reality, if America's not going to support us, if we don't fall under America's umbrella, then we are
mm,
free to choose our
mm,
foreign policy independent of America, which is why you see America still blindly supports Israel at a government level. The citizens, they have something else to say, but that's a different video. At a government level, America still blindly supports Israel. But the European powers, they have a bit less of a commitment to Israel. They have a bit less of a close tie, even though Britain is the one who gave historic Palestine to the Israeli state, even though that is the case. They're not as closely linked to Israel. So you see this fragmenting of the West into Western Europe
mm,
and America. It's becoming separate.
mm,
And Western Europe is going in one direction, which is to distance itself from Israel, and America's sticking to Israel by
mm,
and large,
mm.
for better or worse.
Mahfuz, what does this look like for Israel? How would Israel, what would they be thinking right now? How to like compound power once again? Because this is now getting
Uh,
very, very itchy.
yeah. Uh, Part of what I do, Ali, as an analyst, as a geopolitical analyst, is look at things in a non-activist, neutral stance, analytically, not
Mm,
taking a side.
mm,
And I let the viewers take the
mm,
side. I give the facts and I let viewers take the side. So for Israel, this is a very worrying development because traditionally Israel is used to, Israel has expected, and Israel has grown accustomed to being able to rely on the blind support of the Western powers. Every day, a blank check from Germany, blank check from UK, blank check from France, from America, definitely. Um, it's losing that capability, it's losing the ability to rely on the Western world for unacceptable behavior. Conventionally, under international law, behavior that's completely unacceptable, it would get away with it. It knew that I always get away with it. I've just got a special perk, ability, right? Anyone upsets me, I can just pull out my gold-plated victim card, right?
mm,
Anti-Semitism.
mm,
So that's gone now.
mm,
People have, across the Western world, across the English-speaking world, they have pushed back against this narrative that anti-Israeli sentiment, criticism of the Israeli government equals anti-Semitism. They've pushed back against it and they've essentially defeated that narrative. It still exists in pro-Israeli think tanks and at the state level in America, for example. But in common society, if you ask someone on the street in the UK, in Germany, can you criticize the Israeli state? They'll say Israel is a country like any other country. Of course, I can criticize the country. It's got nothing to do with them being Jewish. It's nothing to do with that. If you keep making it about that, maybe you're anti-Semitic. I don't know, or maybe you're insane. I don't know. But for me, I'm just, if a country slaughters civilians, I'm against it. That's just me. I don't know about you. So that's the kind of narrative we've
yeah,
seen.
which what UK singer was that who said something in the concert against death to IDF, and he got cancelled
Yes.
all around the globe? Who was that guy?
Uh, it was. Um, it was basically the BBC. The plan was to not record, not air live on BBC. Kneecap. Kneecap is a band that plays at Glastonbury. So they decided instead we will record someone else,
Uh,
and the person they were recording was even more extreme than
yeah,
Kneecap,
that
and
guy.
he was chanting "Death, death to the IDF." His name is Bob Villain, but he's not a
Yeah,
villain. He's not a villain. He's just a man. He's a singer. At Glastonbury, the lyrics, they're quite edgy
Yeah.
naturally.
Yeah.
But for the BBC, it's not a problem unless you go against the Israeli Defense Force, unless you go against Israel. BBC has a very interesting stance. Even BBC journalists complained we are being silenced when it comes to Israel. They wrote an open letter. It was a big deal in the UK. So there's a lot of instability, Ali. There's a lot of traditional support for Israel being eroded. And when coming back to your question now, what does this mean for Israel? Is very worrying for Israel. Big problem, bro. Because they don't have any foundation now. It's like what I could rely on to make sure that I am established here in this foreign land that I pretend is native to me. This foundation I stood on is crumbling. So what am I going? Imagine the Western European countries leave me. Then imagine America leaves me, because my analysis is that America wants to exit the Middle Eastern theater so
Yeah.
they can focus on
Yeah.
the Pacific.
Yeah.
Now, if the Western powers leave and America leaves, what's Israel going to do? Do you think Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Turkey, who people complain about in the Muslim community, they say all these Muslim countries, they're not supporting the Palestinian cause, they support Israel. Bro, if America leaves, their state sentiment might change. You would be surprised. Um, so then Israel has nothing but except for its head start that the Western powers gave it economically and militarily and technologically. It's got is Jericho missiles, the Samson option. The Samson option is basically if Israel thinks the situation is hopeless, I'm about to be invaded and completely overthrown, boom, I'm going to press the button and I'm going to kill everyone. That's the Samson option. Is they'll use all the nuclear weapons that they pretend they don't have officially.
Mm.
So the situation is very bad for Israel because geopolitically they don't have a route now. What is the route? The route only seems to be going downhill for them. Their prospects in every direction are only going down. There's no future, geostrategically speaking. So I don't know. It's a very worrying time if you're
While
the Israeli government.
while we do have you on the show, we can just like slip in another question. What is happening between Syria and Israel? The latest conflicts going on there.
I made a 2 hour podcast episode on this with a brother of mine, but I can summarize it in 1 minute for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, let's see if
yeah.
I can do it. Okay, so Bismillah. So basically, in Syria, after 2024, Bashar al Assad, the ruling Alawite Ba'athist party autocrat, was overthrown. Who was he overthrown by? You could call it the Free Syrian Army, or you could call it Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, or you could call it what they call themselves now, which is Hukumatul Inqadus Suriya, meaning the Syrian Salvation Government. Now, what you need to know there is in 2024, the 15-year long reign of Assad was overthrown, or longer than that, but 15 years of civil war ended, and the Syrian Salvation Government took over. The North Syrian rebels, they came down from the north and they took the capital and they took the country by and large. Now, for the Syrian government, the objective is clear. Ahmed al-Sharra, many people call him Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, whatever you want to call him, whether you like him or dislike him, I'm being analytical. His mission is to unite and stabilize Syria. Now, a united, stable, prosperous Syria is very bad news for Israel. Israel's got so
Mm.
many headaches, Ali. It's got
Mm.
Iran in the east, it's got Egypt potentially in the south, it's got the Palestinians in the territory, it's got Jordan and Saudi Arabia that it needs to keep a lid on, it's got Turkey potentially in the north that might flip on NATO anytime, it's got Lebanon and Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon to worry about. Now, Syria, another 16 million Muslims, 80% of the Syrian population is Sunni Muslim, and the rest are minorities. A lot of them hate Israel as well. For that country to unify, stabilize, prosper, and then be sitting on Israel's northern border, very bad.
Mm.
So Netanyahu did something. Netanyahu looked up, or the Israeli state, they looked up a list of minorities, and they saw the Druze. They chose the Druze, and like a Pokemon ball, they said, I choose you, Druze. And then the Druze was given the Druze community in South Syria was given arms, was given advice to push for autonomy, to push for chaos in southern Syria, to fight and commit atrocities against the Bedouin community there to keep Syria unstable. So, this is the current situation. In the south of Syria, the Israelis are supporting a portion of the Druze community to keep the Syrian state overall unstable because Syria worries. A unified Syria is a terrifying prospect for Israel. The people who support, for example, Iran, they got upset when I talked about Syria and potentially it could prosper now. They say, Mahfuz, I thought you were on our side. We're unhappy that Bashar al Assad was overthrown because Assad was aligned with Iran. I said, calm down, listen. Assad was aligned with Iran during a 15-year Syrian civil war when the country was in three fragments: North Syria, the Kurdish northeast, and the south was under Bashar al-Assad. And it was used as a pit stop for Iran on the way to South Lebanon. Iran, it was Iran aligned, but it couldn't do anything. It was like a parking lot for cars. You bring in arms, you wait in Syria, and then you send it off to Lebanon to supply Hezbollah. Now the situation is different. A unified, prosperous Syria potentially could be an even bigger ally to Iran in the future. So, even if you're pro-Iran, which I'm not being
Mm,
pro-Iran, but I'm saying to the people who are, not all hope is lost for you even.
mm,
Like, because a prosperous Syria is also a
mm,
problem for Israel. Then they'll
mm,
have Syria and Iran and all the others I listed to
mm,
worry about. So Israel's trying to keep the country unstable. Ahmed Ashara of the Syrian government is trying really hard to stabilize the country. And it's very hard because he can't militarily fight Israel because the Syrian army is absolutely incapable. It's like a person after 15 years of struggle, Ali. He's trying to get up again. Now, if Israel kicks him, he's just going to crumple on the ground. So they need time. Time, unfortunately, that Israel's not giving them. They're keeping the pressure on, keeping the country destabilized by supporting and arming the Druze.